Okay, so this is chapter 14, where we go over the later years of our life, and we'll look at the aging process and some things that start to happen to us as we age, things like chronic diseases and ADL impairments, and then kind of start towards the death process. So normal aging obviously just happens. This is normal. All living beings age. And so we start to see some deterioration with physical abilities. And those age-related changes, are pretty set in stone. And you know, it happens obviously, and some people will age at different rates compared to other people, and that could be something that's determined by your genetics. It's definitely determined by your lifestyle, right? How healthy you are, and physical activity and so on. But so the onset or the time frame that we might see with different aging aspects of your life may not exactly match that of your neighbor. But for the most part, if you take a step back and you look at all human beings on the planet, for the most part, we follow a pretty predictable aging process. So you saw that I mentioned ADLs. That stands for activities of daily living. If you already work in the medical field or certainly at a hospital, you're going to hear ADLs quite a bit. If you haven't heard that yet, get ready. That's something that you're going to hear. So activities of daily living. Instrumental ADLs, these are kind of higher functioning ADLs. These are more complex tasks that you go about every day in order for you to get through your life. Taking a shower, or I guess the whole grooming process overall, cleaning your house, ironing your clothes, paying your bills, going to the store, going to school. Everybody right now, you guys are functioning just fine. You're able to handle your instrumental ADLs. Where people start needing help with this is very common in old age, right? It might be hard for somebody who's elderly to manage their checkbook or their banking account. It might be difficult for them to drive to the store. It might be difficult for them to clean their house and take care of their yard. Okay, so that's very common, needing help with instrumental ADLs. Your basic ADLs are pretty much taking care of just yourself. I had mentioned taking a shower earlier. You could consider grooming in basic ADLs. Are you able to brush your teeth? Are you able to wash your hair? Clean yourself and so on. Can you eat? Can you get dressed? Can you make it to the restroom? Okay. Anybody who needs help with basic ADLs is going to need 24-hour care. So they're either going to need an in-home nurse or they're going to need to be in a long-term care facility, because you can't get through life if you can't do your basic ADLs on your own. Okay. You'll need somebody to help you. And this is, not the most common, but you certainly see this with advanced old age. And then, of course, anybody who has, some sort of brain injury or, accident or something along those lines. So this is just looking at who needs help with ADLs. The blue is over 75 and the green is kind of your your, younger old people, your 65 to 74. And here's your basic ADLs and here's your instrumental. So as you can see here, clearly people who are over the age of 75 are going to need assistance with those more complex activities of daily living, making it to the store, cleaning their house, and so on. Okay, and a smaller percentage of people are going to need help that are younger. Okay, and here again, people that need help with basic ADLs is overall a lot lower compared to people that need help with instrumental ADLs. And then of course, even a smaller percentage of individuals that are a little bit younger, okay? Maybe a stroke patient, something along those lines would need help with basic ADLs. So, how can we live as long as we want to live or as long as we're hoping to live? If I hope we can get a good grasp of that and be able to answer that question. The things that you can do to help yourself is eat healthy, exercise, and I guess that's kind of it, right? So here it's saying, calorie restriction, right? You want to have, you got to take care of yourself, okay? And you need to exercise and so on. But, we have a lot of DNA that kind of sets the stage too. We may not be able to affect that. So what affects our aging path? Obviously, our socioeconomic status, our ethnicity, gender, and then of course, age is going to affect your aging path also. So your socioeconomic status greatly influences how you're going to age. Across the globe, across the world, people who have more money live longer and have better health. That is should not be a surprise to anyone. And we start to see the relationship of income or the lack of income and illness can start as early as 40. So we typically see those that are at the poverty level will start to experience chronic diseases in their 40s, need help with their ADLs, possibly in their 60s to their 70s, and death by 70s. If you have somebody who's more wealthy, you typically don't see chronic diseases until your 60s, need help in ADLs in your 60s to 70s, and then death by 80s. So those at the poverty level just unfortunately suffer from chronic diseases sooner and often times die sooner compared to their more wealthy counterparts. The accelerated aging process obviously also is affected by just your whole life. And we could say that this is thanks to your mom when she was pregnant with you, and the conditions that she lived can kind of program you for how you are going to age. If she was at the poverty level and wasn't eating very well and stressed out, and then had you possibly early, low birth weight, and then at the lower end of the socioeconomic status and just didn't eat as well, and so on, we see an accelerated aging process. A lot of times we can link this to stress as well. We know that stress speeds up the aging process. So, it may not be only the types of food people eat and so on, but just the amount of stress that they experience at the lower socioeconomic status levels. So, you know, childhood illness. This is something that you could consider. Childhood illness can lead to poverty. You know, was it poverty that caused the childhood illness? Or could we look at it the other way, that it's the illness and the medical bills and so on that lead to poverty? That's definitely something that we can consider here. Ethnicity. Hispanic Americans really seem to fare better in the aging process when compared to whites, if you're looking at low income across the board, both Hispanic and whites. At that point, Hispanics tend to age better. Okay, African Americans are more susceptible to illnesses and premature death compared to any other ethnic group. This is saying by the early 21st century, odds of successfully aging physically has declined by 25%. Meaning at the beginning of this century, the 2000s, we are seeing that we are less likely to age successfully. And if you look at this one, this is kind of explaining that our baby boomers are more disabled than any other previous cohort. Okay, starting with the baby boomers, people aging are sicker, and they are not doing as well. And really, we could perhaps point that to obesity, diabetes, heart disease, etc. Women typically survive longer. We just know this. They outlive men on average about 4 years. But across the entire lifespan, starting from in utero, males die off at higher rates than females. And we don't really know why. Some people say that women just are kind of the hardier, or you know, the harder, better species, because we have 2 X's, which just make us a more stable and, I guess, kind of like just a hardy species. If you look at males, right, they have the X and the Y, and so it's a less stable, if you want to think of it kind of in those terms. I don't know if that's an accurate way to describe it, but you know, women do rank higher on sickness indicators. You could say women go to the doctor more, however, women live longer. Do we live longer because we go to the doctor more? Some people say that could definitely be the case. Women do, though, typically suffer from things that are going to cause ADL problems, and specifically we can think of things like arthritis, either osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, or osteoporosis. So, you know, women have things like that. They're not necessarily going to cause them to pass away, but they cause problems with them being able to take care of themselves. Men are twice as likely to die from a heart attack earlier in life compared to women. And, you know, we could say that men have more stress. We could say that men have more risky jobs like policemen, soldiers, firemen, things like that. So we really don't know why that happens, but that's just something that we see. I'll skip over that one. So let's see, how can we help people age? You know, try to prevent premature births, certainly try and eliminate childhood poverty, try and improve education, which therefore could lead to higher socioeconomic status, hopefully better lifestyles such as eating and exercising can all come from that improving education. You know, focus on communities, right, where we support and nurture our senior citizens, where we help them with healthy nutrition, we help them exercise, we help them in the aging process. So some of the sensory motor changes that happen as we age. Definitely vision is something that we see that's drastically affected by age. They have a harder time seeing in dark settings. They have problems with glare. So like this, like a backlit medicine cabinet might make it really hard for them to read the labels. And then we'll see that they just don't see as well because their lens gets cloudier and cloudier, and it just does not let as much light in there. Okay, so, you know, it's not able to bend and it gets cloudier. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. We also have things like macular degeneration, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, and all these different kind of diseases of the eye that you typically see in elderly patients that make it more difficult for them to see. So things that we can help older people, you want to have something that we call like indirect lighting. If there's just a direct spotlight type idea or a direct light from the window that possibly could add glare, that makes it really hard for them to see. You know, so if you have like tile floors and there's a glare that's coming in from the window, that can make it really difficult for the older person to see. You know, obviously change the lighting. You can have remote controls with really big numbers on them, you know, magnifiers, and things like that that can help elderly people.